Today, a patient with type 2 diabetes came into my clinic totally frustrated. She had cut out sugar, was taking her medication, walking every day, and trying her best to eat healthy. But her blood sugar was still out of control. So I asked her one simple question: "What did you eat for breakfast today?" She gave me a list of foods she rotated through every week for breakfast, foods she genuinely believed were helping her diabetes. The problem? Many of them were doing the exact opposite. And what surprised me wasn't the foods themselves. It was the fact that I hear almost the exact same list from my diabetic patients every single week. These are foods people discover in Facebook groups, health blogs, YouTube videos, and social media posts. They're promoted so often that most people never stop to question whether they're actually helping their blood sugar or not. In fact, let me give you just one example so that you know what kind of foods I'll talk about today. Let's take multigrain bread. Yes, the bread every diabetic thinks is healthy. Was that surprising to you? Did you think multigrain bread was a healthy choice for diabetics? Because most people do. And that's exactly why I'm making this video. Whenever I ask my diabetic patients what they're eating for breakfast, I keep hearing the same foods over and over again. Not because they're making bad decisions, but because there's so much conflicting information online that it's become almost impossible to know what's actually good for your blood sugar. So today, I'm going to break down 10 breakfast foods that many diabetics believe are healthy, explain why they may be causing problems, and show you what to eat instead. Let's begin. Number 10, flavored yogurt. Now don't get me wrong, yogurt itself can be a great food for diabetics. The problem starts when food companies take that healthy reputation and use it to market flavored versions. Strawberry yogurt, vanilla yogurt, peach yogurt, blueberry yogurt. These products still have the word yogurt on the front, so people naturally assume they're just as healthy. But companies know that most people prefer sweeter flavors, so they add sugars, syrups, fruit concentrates, and flavorings to make the product taste better. And that's where things go wrong. Many flavored yogurts contain 15 to 25 grams of added sugar in a single serving. That's enough to turn a healthy breakfast into something much closer to dessert. The frustrating part is that the information is right there on the label. If you flip the container over and read the ingredients list, you'll often find sugar, syrups, fruit juice concentrates, or other sweeteners clearly listed. But most of us never look. We see the word yogurt on the front, assume it's healthy, and put it straight into the shopping cart. That's exactly why so many diabetics end up eating far more sugar than they realize before their day has even started. A much better option is plain Greek yogurt. It's packed with protein, contains little to no added sugar, and has a much smaller impact on blood sugar compared to flavored varieties. The high protein content also helps you stay full for longer, reducing cravings and making it easier to avoid unnecessary snacking later in the day. If you want sweetness, add a handful of fresh berries yourself. That way you control the sugar instead of letting the manufacturer companies do it for you. But if you think flavored yogurt is misleading, wait until you see the next breakfast food that many diabetics eat specifically because they believe it's healthier than cereal. Number 9, granola and granola bars. Most people look at granola and see a healthy breakfast. After all, it's made with oats, nuts, and whole grains. The packaging is covered with words like natural, wholesome, and heart healthy. But here's what most people never do. They turn the package around. Because when you actually read the ingredients list, you'll often find added sugar, honey, brown rice syrup, or other sweeteners hiding inside. In other words, many granolas aren't just oats and nuts. They're oats and nuts coated with sugar. And then there's the portion size problem. A serving of granola is often just 1/4 cup. That's far less than most people pour into a bowl. In reality, many people eat 2, 3, or even 4 servings without realizing how much sugar they are adding to their bodies. So what looks like a small healthy breakfast can quickly become a large carbohydrate load that sends blood sugar much higher than expected. Instead, try a small handful of almonds or walnuts. They provide healthy fats, protein, and far fewer hidden ingredients. Now let's move to a food that sounds healthy simply because it contains the word fruit. Number 8, dried fruit. Many diabetics choose dried fruit because they think fruit automatically means healthy. Unfortunately, dried fruit works differently. When fruit is dried, most of the water is removed. What remains is a much smaller package containing highly concentrated natural sugars. Because the sugar is so concentrated, a few handfuls of dried fruit can deliver the same amount of sugar as eating several whole fruits in one sitting. And this is just the beginning. It gets even worse when it comes to packaging. Many commercial dried fruits, especially dried cranberries, mangoes, pineapples, and papayas, have extra sugar added during processing. So you're not only dealing with concentrated sugar, you're often dealing with added sugar too. To be fair, small portions of unsweetened dried fruit may fit into some diabetes meal plans. But for most people, portion control becomes extremely difficult. A better choice is fresh fruit, especially berries such as strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries. Their fiber and water content helps slow sugar absorption and make them much more blood sugar friendly. And the next food on this list might be the biggest breakfast surprise of them all. In fact, when I ask my diabetic patients what they eat for breakfast, this is one of the foods I hear mentioned again and again and again. Number 7, instant and flavored oatmeal. Oatmeal is often promoted as one of the healthiest breakfasts you can eat. The problem is that most people aren't eating plain oats. They're eating flavored instant oatmeal packets loaded with added sugar and heavily processed ingredients. During manufacturing, instant oats are broken down and processed so they cook faster. But that also means your body digests them faster, causing blood sugar to rise more quickly. Then manufacturers add flavors like maple brown sugar, apples and cinnamon, or cinnamon spice, which often contain even more sugar. What starts as a healthy food becomes something very different. A much better option is steel-cut oats or old-fashioned rolled oats. They're less processed, contain more fiber, and have a gentler effect on blood sugar. And now we come to the food I mentioned earlier in the video, the one that surprises almost everyone, multigrain bread. In fact, if you ask most people to name a healthy bread for diabetics, this would probably be one of their first answers. The loaf is brown, the package says whole grain, and it feels like a healthier choice. But here's the problem. Many breads marketed as multigrain or made with whole grain are still made primarily from refined flour. The front of the package may look healthy, while the ingredient list tells a completely different story. For diabetics, that can mean blood sugar spikes that are not much different from regular white bread. The safest rule is simple: ignore the front label. Turn the package around and read the ingredients. If the first ingredient isn't 100% whole wheat flour or whole grain wheat flour, you're probably not getting the product you think you're buying. Even better options include sprouted grain bread or sourdough rye, which tend to have a lower impact on blood sugar. Now, the next item on our list is something countless diabetics add to their coffee every single day. But is it actually helping their blood sugar, or is it another example of clever marketing? Let's talk about oat milk. Oat milk has exploded in popularity. Coffee shops love it, health influencers recommend it, and many people assume it's healthier simply because it's plant-based. But what most people don't realize is that turning oats into oat milk changes how your body processes them. During production, the starch in oats is broken down into simpler sugars that can be absorbed much more quickly. That's one reason some people notice significant blood sugar rises after drinking oat milk, even when they would never expect it. Now, a small splash in your coffee is unlikely to cause major problems. The real issue is when oat milk becomes a daily drink, poured into large coffees, cereals, smoothies, and multiple meals throughout the day. A better alternative is unsweetened almond milk. It's lower in carbohydrates, has minimal impact on blood sugar, and works just as well in coffee, cereal, and recipes. Up until now, I've been telling you the same thing again and again. Don't trust what's written on the front of the package. Turn it around and read the ingredients label on the back. That's usually where you'll find the truth. But the next food is different, because this time, even the front of the package can be misleading. Number 4, sugar-free foods. This is where many diabetics get trapped. They see the words sugar-free on the package and immediately assume it's safe. Here's what I want you to understand. Just because a product says sugar-free doesn't mean it won't raise your blood sugar. Just remember this, food companies still need these products to taste good. And let's be honest, by good, they usually mean sweet. Because if a product is labeled sugar-free but tastes terrible, most people won't buy it a second time. So companies have found a way to give you both. A product that can legally be called sugar-free while still tasting sweet enough to keep you coming back for more. How do they do it? Instead of adding regular sugar, they often use sweeteners such as maltitol, sorbitol, xylitol, or other sugar alcohols. And here's the interesting part. Even with these sweeteners added, the product can still be marketed as sugar-free because it doesn't contain traditional sugar. And that's only part of the problem. Many sugar-free cookies, chocolates, and snack bars still contain flour, starches, and other carbohydrates that your body quickly converts into glucose. So while the natural sugar is not there, your blood sugar will still spike. That's why I always tell my patients, don't stop reading when you see the words sugar-free. Turn the package around and look at the ingredients and nutrition label, because that's where the real story begins. The bigger problem is psychology. People often eat larger portions because they believe the product is healthy. A sugar-free cookie still contains calories and carbohydrates. Eat enough of them and your blood sugar may rise more than you expected. The solution? Don't trust the front of the package. Read the ingredient list and nutrition label. Focus on total carbohydrates, not just the sugar content. And if possible, choose real foods over heavily processed, diabetic-friendly snacks. Now let's move to something millions of people drink every morning, thinking it's one of the healthiest breakfasts possible. Number 3, fruit smoothies. Fruit smoothies sound healthy. They're made from fruit after all. The problem is what happens when multiple fruits get blended into one drink. Most people would never sit down and eat a banana, a mango, several strawberries, and an orange in one sitting. But they'll drink all of that in a smoothie within a few minutes. That creates a massive sugar load. Even worse, many store-bought smoothies contain fruit juice, flavored yogurt, syrups, or sweeteners that push the sugar content even higher. As a result, blood sugar can rise much faster than most people expect. Does that mean all smoothies are bad? No. You just need to build them differently. Use unsweetened almond milk instead of juice. Choose berries instead of high-sugar fruits like mangoes. Add chia seeds, spinach, or a protein source to help slow digestion. A properly built smoothie can work. The ones sold as healthy often don't. And now we arrive at the food millions of diabetics intentionally switch to because they've been told it's healthier. Number 2, brown rice. This is probably one of the most common changes diabetics make after diagnosis. And while brown rice does contain more fiber and nutrients than white rice, many people completely miss the real issue. The real issue isn't the type of rice, it's the amount. Because here's what usually happens. Someone switches from white rice to brown rice and immediately feels safer eating it. They think, this is healthy rice now. So they keep filling the same large plate. They keep eating the same large portions. Sometimes they even eat more because they believe it's better for them. And that's where the problem begins. A large serving of brown rice is still a large serving of carbohydrates. Your blood sugar doesn't care that the rice is brown. It cares about how many carbohydrates are hitting your bloodstream. That's why I see so many diabetics make the switch to brown rice, yet their blood sugar barely changes. Not because brown rice is bad, because they changed the rice but never changed the portion. Brown rice isn't the villain here. The false sense of security is. If you're eating 2 or 3 cups of brown rice, the extra fiber isn't going to magically cancel out the massive carbohydrate load. That's why portion control matters far more than most people realize. So here's what you need to do. Simply reducing the amount of rice on your plate can have a bigger impact on blood sugar than switching from white rice to brown rice. So if you enjoy rice, don't just ask yourself, what type of rice am I eating? Ask yourself, how much rice am I eating? Because for most diabetics, that's the question that makes the biggest difference. Even better, consider lower glycemic options such as basmati rice or cauliflower rice. Number 1, Raisin Bran. We've finally reached the number 1 food on our list. And honestly, this might be the food that surprises people the most. Because if I asked 100 people to name a healthy breakfast cereal, there's a very good chance Raisin Bran would be near the top of the list. Think about it. The box talks about fiber. It contains bran, it contains raisins, and it's often marketed as a wholesome way to start your day. On the surface, it sounds like exactly the kind of breakfast a diabetic should be eating. But here's the problem. Most people never look beyond the front of the box. Because when you turn it around, you'll discover something very different. A single serving of Raisin Bran can contain close to 20 grams of sugar. That's before we even talk about milk. And let's be honest for a second. When was the last time you measured out one serving of cereal? Most people don't. They fill a bowl, then they fill it a little more, and before they know it, they're eating 2 or even 3 servings without realizing it. Now that 20 grams of sugar becomes 40, or even 60, and that's before adding the carbohydrates from the cereal itself. This is exactly why I wanted Raisin Bran to be number 1 on this list, because it perfectly represents the biggest lesson I want you to take away from today's video. The most dangerous breakfast foods for diabetics aren't always the foods that look unhealthy. They're the foods that look healthy. The foods covered in words like whole grain, fiber, and made with fruit. The foods that make you lower your guard. Now, does that mean Raisin Bran is the worst food in the supermarket? Of course not. But if you're eating large bowls of it every morning believing it's helping your diabetes, there's a good chance it's doing the exact opposite. A much better option would be a breakfast built around protein and fiber, such as eggs, plain Greek yogurt, or steel-cut oats. Because when it comes to managing blood sugar, what matters isn't the marketing on the front of the box. It's what you're actually putting into your body. Now, avoiding the wrong foods is only half the battle. The other half is knowing how to build your breakfast the right way. For example, here's a simple trick most diabetics have never been taught. Instead of starting your meal with carbohydrates, try eating your protein and fiber first. Then eat your carbohydrates afterward. Studies have shown that this simple change can help reduce the glucose spike that happens after a meal. And that's just one of the many breakfast strategies I cover in my next video. So if you'd like to learn how to build a breakfast that supports healthier blood sugar levels and discover several more simple techniques like this, click on the video on your screen right now. I'll see you there.